Today we are talking about transformation, not just on an external level, but on a deep internal level too. My guest is the extraordinary Brian Pennie. Brian is an author, a speaker, a PhD in neuroscience, and he is also a former heroin addict of 15 years. His story is about a lot more than overcoming addiction. It's about waking up to life, breaking free of unconscious patterns, and learning how to truly live. Now, through his research, his writing, and his teaching, he's helping others to do the same. This is going to be a good one.
The Wellness Project is sponsored by Activia and Irish Life Health.
So, Brian Pennie, hi.
How are you, Dominique?
Good. How are you?
I'm really, really good. I have to say, I'm in a great place right now. And do you know what the reason is? Very busy the last few years, and I really ramped up last year.
Yeah.
So I've made a very deliberate effort to peel back, spend time with loved ones,
Good.
nature, hikes, all that kind of stuff. So I'm getting the benefits.
That sounds so nice, and I'm glad because you have been super, super busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I see you, there's another amazing thing that you're doing.
It's good stuff, but it's like it's not sustainable, you know? Yeah.
So I've talked about in the introduction about your extraordinary life. And it's not just extraordinary because of what you've overcome, because of your overcoming addiction. It's also extraordinary because you managed to rewire, I want to say your brain, but your life. You've rewired yourself.
Yeah, I really have. Like it's funny because the essence, and I've gotten people that have known me in addiction to say this, the essence of me is still there. Like I was always joyful, enthusiastic, but just with a lot of panic attacks and anxiety. Like it was very, they both live together, those things, which is quite interesting. People think you're one or the other. But I think like I'm definitely enthusiastic. It's a lot of joy now today. But it's me behaviours, me patterns, me beliefs, me values, me brain, everything is being rewired. It's a nice way of putting it, actually.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary thing to be able to do. I don't think I've never met anyone else who can see such two different chapters in their life and see a change so distinct between the two.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's like, I feel I was dragged into addiction. I was trying to escape that pain and the trauma I experienced, and I was addicted to drugs to escape that pain. But I think the second chapter in my life is like, it's not an addiction. It's a drive and an obsession to do good things, to live a healthy life, to have good relationships, to really, really live like, and be alive.
Yeah. And you can see that the drive on both sides then. It's a similar...
It's interesting.
Yeah. One of the things that you said, I interviewed you a year or 2 years ago, and one of the things you said then, which resonated and I found so profound, was that you weren't just addicted to heroin, or you weren't only addicted to heroin, you were addicted to thinking.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are addicted to thinking.
Which it really resonated with me. It really resonated with me.
Yeah.
How can we stop? How did you learn how to slow down your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a better way of talking about it, is turning down the volume on it, I think so. I was a compulsive thinker. Anxiety was the driver of everything bad in my life.
Yeah.
And anxiety, what is anxiety? There's multiple facets of it. It came in my body through tightness and different elements manifested in my body, my chest. I had a phobic fear of my heartbeat, my breath and pulse. But I was constantly worrying, constantly thinking, compulsively thinking all of the time. And I think what you're doing, people that compulsively think, you're thinking about things that you're trying to avoid in the future. Usually that's where the anxiety element lives. And then you think it's working. So you're constantly thinking, trying to figure things out, but it doesn't actually work because you can only deal with the present moment in the present moment.
Yeah.
And we become addicted to that kind of thinking. Now, I was very lucky to have a shift in perspective from a near-death experience that just knocked me for six. And I felt this immense joy soon after that while I was in a heroin detox. Like, you shouldn't be feeling immense presence and immense joy while you're in the depths of a heroin detox. No. And I knew something profound had happened to me, but I had no language around this. I didn't know what was going on. And it was only retrospectively a couple of weeks after that, I was doing a meditation in a treatment center. And somebody talked about the voices come in and the voices let them go. And I had this realization that my mind was really quiet. And that sent me off on an incredible journey. Like, was that the Was that the main driver of this thinking and the emotions that go with that. Like I've explored the link between emotions and thinking in my PhD.
Yeah.
They're intrinsically linked. And I think we're always trying to think our way out of a thinking problem, and we become addicted to that. Now, how to slow it down is the basics. It's nature. It's good relationships. It's present moment experiences.
Yeah.
It's the practice of letting it go, observing it. Because if you don't know it's there, like because you're constantly thinking, that inner critic, that inner voice, if it's there consistently, you can't even see it. So you have to take a step back and say, right, what am I feeling right now? What am I thinking right now? Take that observer perspective, and that's how you can let it go. That's the key for me.
Awareness.
Awareness, yeah.
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 Where do you think that came from, the anxiety originally?
So my anxiety, I used to call it my anxiety. The anxiety I experienced is a better way of putting it.
Important difference.
And but I used to call it my anxiety when I was younger. But I had an operation as an infant without a general anaesthetic. This was the practice before 1985. Quite shocking. People find this quite shocking today. And even I'm talking about now, 46 years of age, and I still want to rub the scar on my belly.
Wow.
Now, I've done a lot of work on this. I can hold it. I can sit with it. I can go there. I've done a lot of trauma work on this. But this terrified me. And I became so terrified of my inner body, my heartbeat, pulse, breath, phobically afraid of this stuff as a result of that traumatic experience that I had. Because trauma, the body keeps the score. It's the name of a great book. It literally changes the biology of your brain and your body. It's actually an adaptive thing. It's kind of keeping you on red alert for future threats, but it's maladaptive in the world we live in today and in this circumstance for me and for many people. So I was constantly hyper vigilant, on red alert, looking for future threats. That's what worry is. Like anxiety kind of can serve a purpose. But if it's chronic and consistent, it just turns back in yourself. And that's where I fundamentally believe it came from.
And if that's happening to you from such a young age as a baby, you don't know any different.
Yeah.
That's just how your brain is wired.
Yeah.
I heard you say that a year or two ago, and that also really stuck with me. I was adopted when I was really, really young, and I had never really considered before
The impact.
Yeah. I'd never even thought about what effects anything would have on a small baby.
Yeah.
You know, be it that emotional pain or physical pain or anything. And it's something so interesting to think about, the experiences we have when we're that small. And also as a mother, it really made me think about the experiences my babies were having. So it's fascinating. It's such fascinating stuff. I would love to talk about, and you're kind of touching on it there, but stillness, finding that internal and external stillness and allowing yourself to return to yourself underneath that anxiety, and how you do that.
I think, and I did touch on that. I think there's a couple of pillars that I've learned about this through work of other fantastic people. I think Eckhart Tolle is one of the ones. I loved his work. And I suppose there was 3 pillars that I've taken from that. And the first one is observe self. Become the observer of yourself, because awareness is the catalyst for change.
Yeah.
You've got to be aware of that. So not that you can do something about it. The awareness itself and the observing itself, that's a present moment experience that can bring stillness, you know? And then I think we've got to remember that we're human beings, but we tend to be human doings. And I love to do. So just be. And I think it was an episode of Scrubs one time I was watching, and it was this older woman, she was going to be dying, and she told JD, the guy in Scrubs, says, just be, just sit in the grass and do nothing else but sit on the grass. And that's what we don't do. What do? We sit in the grass and we think, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And we're up in our heads all the time. Just sit on the grass, just be. And I think another element that we really have to think about as well is acceptance. Like, life is hard. Curveballs will come. But what is, it already is the case. But we tend to resist reality. And it's back to that thinking. We try to think our way out of a thinking problem. Like, some people are stuck in traffic. They're not going to think their way out of that. But they'll be saying, I should have left earlier. I should have done this. I'm not doing this again. They're resisting reality. So accept reality. And you can just feel a settling down of everything. Accept reality. Observe the thoughts. and just be.
Do you practice that every day?
I did practice that every day. I used to call myself a self-observing machine. I was always observing myself, and I think I just internalized the practice over time.
Yeah.
So I don't feel I need to do it anymore because it's something, I always have one inward eye on the inside, bodily sensations, feelings,
Yeah.
the narrative that's going on. And it's something I've internalized. So I create that habit. And thankfully, it's not something, I think a lot of things, if you do it long enough, it just becomes part of who you are, part of what you do.
Yeah.
So that was the key. But I'd have other tools and tactics like that don't allow it to get out of place. Like I exercise regularly. I eat good food. I get enough sleep. I spend time around people that lift me. I don't have much time for people that complain, blame, condemn. I don't let those sort of things into me life to allow that to spiral out of control. It's a lot of preventative stuff now.
You talk about seeing life in HD when you woke up in recovery. Do you still see life in HD now?
When I'm still enough, I don't think I will ever get back to the moment I had when I was in detox. It was like the world was just gone. I think it was the comparison of how dead and dull it was because I'd numbed myself with drugs for so long. Like I just used so much drugs that just numbed me emotions, numbed me feelings. But then all of a sudden I just woke up and the sounds were just so beautiful. Seeing things was just so beautiful. Everything was like in HD as you describe it. And it's often, I talked about earlier about sort of slowing down this year.
Yeah.
And I feel that the volume was coming up on that HD. It's coming into focus a little bit more. And it's a simple things like being present. Like we have a little puppy Lily at the minute and I bring her out for walks. But I noticed this year, I'm looking at this, I'm catching the stars more. I'm catching the skies more, the trees. Like just sitting looking at a plant sometime. I sound very woo-woo here, but if you just sit long enough with that sense, it comes alive a little bit more. And I think that's what it's about. It's slowing down the head to actually feel.
To open up the heart.
Yeah, open up the heart,
Yeah. And that's what presence is, really.
That's what presence is,
Yeah, it's beautiful. When you look at the world around you and the different human beings, everywhere who are stuck, who aren't feeling that, who are in these kind of unconscious patterns of behavior that they don't even know they're in, but who aren't very happy. What do you say to them? I mean, where do you even begin?
It's really difficult because there's a great line in probably the most profound book that I've ever read. It's the Chinese book of wisdom called the Tao Te Ching. And the Tao Te Ching is just the way. And the way is nameless. So it's non-verbal. It's a feeling. It's a knowing. And when I tried to talk about that sense of stillness and that experience I had, I kind of lose it with language. And there's a lovely line in that sort of, I don't think it's in the Tao Te Ching, but it's in that sort of collection of works. It's those who say don't know, those who know don't say. So it's very hard. We try to, especially people we love, we try to fix them, we try to change them, we try to tell them what to do, but they just dig their heels in. And especially like if you're trying to tell them don't be drinking so much, well, that drinking is serving a function. So it's like you're trying to take it off them and they're just going to go against you. Yeah. So I don't know if we can actually say, we can plant seeds, we can be compassionate, we can listen, practice compassion for other people and listen. Absolutely. But I think our actions is what really shows. If they see you emanating joy and happiness, they'll want a bit of that. And if they come to you, then share. And I think that's the key.
Is there a mindset? I mean, you've worked with leaders and athletes and kind of high performers generally. Is there a certain mindset that you notice that differentiates people like that?
There definitely is. I wouldn't call it a mindset. I think it's the opposite of a mindset. It's nearly like no mind, that way, like for people. And I've never helped or worked with anyone like that. I've sort of saw leaders, I've saw spiritual teachers like that for a certain extent. But I have met other very high performing people in certain areas. For me, success is inner peace. That's what success is. Yeah. But I've met many high performers that have succeeded in life in terms of monetary success and status success, whatever way you want to call it. And some people can get lost in the ego of that and they lose that sense of stillness. But some people carry them together, which is quite beautiful as well. So I don't know if it's a mindset. I think awareness. I think it's an awareness. It's emotional intelligence and ability to practice empathy with other people as well. And it's about life's about relationships at the end of the day. So I think that's really crucial.
Yeah, and living consciously.
Yeah.
That's something that I remember you speaking about before. And when I was prepping for talking to you today, I was curious the word consciously, and especially as a neuroscientist, what that means to you now, and if that's what you perceive as living consciously has changed over time.
Yeah, neuroscience really struggles to study consciousness, and it's interesting. The only way they've done experimental research is studying unconsciousness. So to make the comparison, it's basically people that are asleep, they put them asleep, and consciously, it depends how you want to use that word. I suppose living consciously, that you're in awareness and you're deliberate about your actions, and I think that's really key. But I think one of the biggest challenges that we face, especially in today's world, is that we're constantly being pulled off track.
Yeah.
We have technology.
Yeah.
Like we've the best computer scientists in the world hijacking reward systems of our brain to pull us onto the phone, pull us onto the devices. And that just steals our consciousness, that way. So to live consciously, I think you have to be very deliberate about it. And it's something that I'm really trying to do, is reduce my phone time, reduce screen time.
Me too,
and actually live in the real world, touch things, talk to people, hug people. Life is a contact sport. It's not to be lived through the phone. I think that's really important.
I couldn't agree more. I find myself now, even just going to the toilet, I'm taking my phone, I'm playing a podcast for the 30 seconds that I journey to the toilet and back.
Yeah.
And there's no moment, unless I make it happen, where I'm just sitting thinking, or not thinking. I'm always, chasing something or being entertained or being, information stuck in my face. And it's really hard to step away from it.
And I think what you touched on at the very start, the phones are rewiring our brains to want something novel all of the time.
Yeah.
And I remember reading something years ago that always stuck with me, that the most important skill no one ever teaches us is the ability to sit alone with your own thoughts. And I think we really, really struggle with that. And the phones, it's already difficult, but now we have this device that's making it even more difficult.
Yeah.
And how, as a generation, future generations are going to be so rewired around devices, phones, AI is playing a bigger role now as well. It's quite scary when you think of how it'll change us culturally in that way.
And it's important for the brain to be still, is it? Like physiologically.
Physiologically, I would say, so it's the mind-body connect, it's your brain and your body are so intricately connected. So if you're constantly thinking, you're activating those neural networks. And if you're thinking about negative stuff, like a lot of the news is negative. You look at what's going on in the world right now. So if you have a social media feed and it's just negative, that's actually triggering your brain, triggering your body, releasing cortisol.
Yeah.
It's have a massive impact on your emotional, psychological and physical health.
What should we be doing? It's so terrifying. The world is scary right now. I mean, there's a lot of positives, and this is what I try and say to myself. There is a lot of good happening, and to try and look at that. But it can feel really overwhelming, all of the bad. It's a scary time to be alive in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it really is. I think we have to focus on what we can control. And I think if people put too much emphasis on climate change, and these things are massively important, and we need to voice that. And what you can control, you can tell other people about it. But are you doing something proactively about it? I think that's the key. But if you're just constantly thinking about these big, weather events, political events, the housing crisis, these political things, these things are largely outside of our control. So we sort of get lost in that and we don't focus on ourselves. What can you control? You can go for a hike, you can be kind to the person on the street. You can send out your little ripples from there. So we're not going to be able to solve all the big world crises, but if we all do our little bit and be kind and be nice to other people, that's what it's all about. If everyone was just nice and kind and a bit more consciously living, there will be no challenges. So let's all send out our own little ripples and hopefully that'll make a difference.
And focus what's in front of you and do your little bit. Because you get overwhelmed when you think about big things. You don't do anything at all then.
Yeah. And it is a struggle because the big issues that are going on right now, you have to do something about it as well. So there's a balancing act with that as well. But you do fundamentally can't get lost in it either.
Yeah, which is easier said than done.
I know. Yeah.
Do you think that we are more than our thoughts?
Oh, definitely more than our thoughts. I think our thoughts get in the way. I remember Descartes was one of the greatest philosophers of all time. René Descartes, and he says, what was his most famous saying? I think, therefore I am. And he broke it all down to that. And I think it's really the opposite of that. Thinking is the bloody problem.
Yeah.
I think, who are we? And it's back to what we chatted about already. I think we're the observer of that stuff. Like, I think a greater presence comes into our life when we start observing our thoughts. So we're not our thoughts. I think our thoughts are a tool and an instrument, and they're a phenomenal evolutionary link. But they have a dark side, which we just discussed. So we are far more than our thoughts. I think there's an energy, a consciousness, there's a knowing and a feeling thing. Like, thoughts are predominantly verbal. Obviously you visualize and you can visually think about things as well, but they're predominantly verbal. And I think they're humans' greatest curse as well as our greatest gift as well. But we are far more than our thoughts.
Do you believe in something greater than yourself, greater than us?
Yeah, I wouldn't be religious at all, but I do think when your life is over, I think the self dies. The thoughts, the personality, if you want to call it that, whatever, I think that goes. But I think there's a greater energy. I think there's something else that goes back up there into the cosmos, whatever goes on. Like, it's the first law of thermodynamics. Like, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's always there. So what happens? Something has to happen. So I believe in something greater than myself. Just having a clue what
Who knows what it is.
Who knows what it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's the exact same as me.
Yeah.
You can feel there's an energy. It's undeniable.
Yeah.
From each person, and it goes around and around. How do we, I mean, there's a lot of talk about energy, right? And in kind of different ways, energy and moving energy. But you talk about how we're not our thoughts, and actually we have thinking problems.
Yeah.
How do we shift those? How do we shift our energy? How do we, detach from things that are negative, or that you're going over and over again in your head, or a bad feeling?
Yeah, there's multiple different ways of doing that. I think there's two ways. Like, do you try to remove the bad feeling when it arises, or do you try to really work on yourself before that stuff arises as well? Like, I would have gratitude is a huge player in my life, and it's just being grateful for the things in my life. And I'd start my day with it. I have a 3-minute morning routine. I start my day with it all the time. It's a minute of breath work, a minute of an affirmation. So the acronym is BAG, BAG, a minute of affirmations. So I'm Brian, I'm strong, I can cope with anything. That's just the affirmation I'm using right now. And the third one is gratitude. And I literally just focus and visualize grateful moments in my life. You were at my event in the Helix, weren't you? So that event, I'm so grateful for that event, even though I forgot my lines.
Amazing.
But what a lot of people don't know, my little nephew, he was 7 at the time, was a gorgeous little soulful fella. He was at that event, Aaron, and it was the first time he ever heard the story about me as a baby.
Oh, wow.
And he said it to my sister. He says, "Why did they do that to baby Brian?" He was like angry at the doctors. And when I went off stage for a few minutes when I forgot my lines, Aaron was saying to me, "Mom, I want to go back to Brian." And she said, "You can't, Aaron, you can't." He says, "I want to go back to Brian." And she says, "Why?" I says, "I want to give him a hug." And he came backstage, and he came up and gave me a hug backstage. And it's one of the most cherished moments in my life. I visualize that, and I bring that into my life in the morning for a minute, and I'm tapping into serotonin. I'm tapping into those feel-good neurotransmitters in my brain, giving myself a dose of positivity before the day even starts. So that's a preventative strategy. Like, it's going to be harder for those negative thoughts to get in. It's going to be harder for those negative feelings to get in when you preempt the day. Win the morning, win the day. You know, that way. So that's one way of doing it. Exercise is a big part of my life as well. And just removing the triggers from your life. Like, if something is causing a lot of stress and a lot of bad feelings in your life, stop pulling the trigger. Remove it from your life as best you can. You can't remove everything. Work things, family things. You can't remove everything, but try to reduce it as much as you can. But I think when those feelings are there, sometimes you're having a bad day. Sometimes life is hard. Sometimes you just have to sit with that bit of self-compassion and say, look, this is hard. I'm doing my best. But there's multiple different strategies. Like, I think you're talking about moving energy and stuff. Like, I'm into ice baths at the moment, and I know it's a bit of a craze at the minute, but ice baths really shift your energy from a scientific perspective as well. But they shift your energy. Going for a run, getting the body moving really shifts energy. Motion drives emotion. Like, there's a fundamental belief system I have is that we need to make values-based decisions rather than feelings-based decisions. So I feel down, I'm going to binge on TikTok. Not good. I feel down, I'm going to have a bottle of wine or two. Not good. How about making values-based decisions? I feel down, I'm going to go for a run. I feel down, I'm going to walk the dog. I feel down, I'm going to go and talk to a friend. Because you value your health, your relationships. So we need to make those hard choices when we don't feel great rather than those easy feelings-based choices, because they can just bring you down a darker path. I think that's something I really try to practice.
There was so much in everything you said there. I was like, that, when I touched on that, when I touched that. Motion moves emotion. Did you say that?
Motion drives emotion.
Motion drives emotion.
Our mood follows action. So we often think, oh, I feel crap, I'm gonna do this. No.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna do this to feel better.
Yeah.
I came across a great line when I was doing my psychology degree. And it was a theory of emotion by William James, one of the most prominent psychologists of all time. Mm-hmm. And his theory of emotion is captured in this picture of a bird singing in a tree.
Yeah.
And it was this older, apparently wiser man walking underneath, and he says to the bird, you're singing because you're happy. And the little bird says, don't be silly. I'm happy because I'm singing. So the singing made him happy.
Yeah.
But if you allow challenges of the world to drive your actions because of how you feel, that's the world pulling your strings. So that's really important. Take agency, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Value-based decisions. Values. How do you go about finding your values, knowing your values, sticking to your values? Did they change?
They definitely change, and they're culturally defined as well. Like, values in the Eastern world versus the Western world be very collectivist versus individualistic, you know, that way. So that can be different as well. And even through time, like, boldness is a core value of mine. I love taking a chance and putting myself out there into the world. But as I get into me later 40s now, it's like, I'm getting a bit too old for boldness. I don't think so. But I don't think I'd be boldness to be a core value when I'm 80 or 90, you know, that way.
It's like a different type of boldness I thought you meant.
No. It's like taking risks, putting yourself out there into the world. But how do you identify your values? It's very hard. The research shows only 5% of people can deliberately recall their values in the moment. So what's driving your actions? What's driving your decision-making processes? So I think it's good to get out of your own perspective. It's a very morbid question I love, but is, what would you like your loved ones to say about you if you were at your own funeral? And I love that. Is it loyal, kind, empathetic, driven, motivated, healthy, good person? What would you like them to say about you? And that will give you an insight into the things that you value. Who do you admire in the world? What was their values? Who do you not admire in the world? Turn it upside down. Like, if somebody's arrogant, maybe humility is something that you value. So thinking about it from that perspective, and then thinking of tangible things like your family, your relationships and stuff like that. It's just a way of sort of exploring that, you know?
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
Resilience is another thing I've heard you talk so powerfully about building resilience.
Yeah.
Like bricks in the wall and building a wall of resilience for yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. It's how I like to think about resilience, because I think resilience it's important, but it's how you reframe resilience, I think, is key as well.
Yeah.
Because I think we can get gritty, determined, resilient people in the world, but some of them people might just take on more stuff.
Yeah.
And the hits keep coming and they will eventually fall. So I like to think of it as beyond resilience. It's using the challenges as the fuel for growth. Like, anxiety was my Achilles heel. It took many years of my life away through addiction. And my belief system around anxiety was, I can't cope with anxiety. And my belief determined the consequences. I took drugs to cope with the anxiety because I couldn't cope with it myself. But through the adversity I faced and what I've learned, my belief now is that adversity doesn't stop me. It fuels my ability to thrive. And I use anxiety as my friend. It's been my teacher. I enjoy anxiety. I've learned through the adversity to sit with anxiety. I still get anxious, of course I do.
Do you really?
Well, like, if I'm going out on a stage and there's 1,000 people, of course, like, anxiety isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Anxiety is a signal. That's all it is. If I'm going on safari and a lion jumps out, I hope I get damn well anxious. Like, that's stress, anxiety. There's signals, there are potential things. So I don't get chronic anxiety because I just let it go.
Yeah.
And I don't really get anxious, to be honest. It'd be big talks. Me TV documentaries coming out could feel a little bit of anxiety, but it's excitement, it's anxiety. I can reframe it, I can play with it. But it's not necessarily bad. It's just our association with it is. But I have a toolbox now that I just use, and I can just let the anxiety go and let it go away. So it doesn't affect me anymore, is a better way of putting it.
Can you talk about the difference between emotions? Like when you're talking about anxiety, I'm thinking about a feeling, like an emotion, a physical sensation.
Yeah.
But it's also a thinking, thought issue as well.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between emotions and feelings and thoughts?
Definitely. So a thought, I suppose, is something verbal, predominantly verbal. Like it can have thinking patterns that are visual, but predominantly verbal. So like, let's say you're prone to thinking about the future. Oh, I hope I can pay that bill. I hope that podcast goes well. I hope the kids are going to not get bullied at school. That's what you're thinking. You're up in the future. And anxiety tends to live in the future, thoughts about the future. In the past, I should have done that, I should have done this. That's like a sadness and depression. It tends to live in the past. It's like thoughts about the past.
Yeah.
But when I found out that I had this stillness from a lack of thinking, or I believed that, I went on an exploration to look at the link between language and emotion. And a lot of my PhD was sort of exploring this link. It's a lovely theory called relational frame theory. Now, it's very academic theory, so I'll sort of talk about it in more lay terms, but there's a Persian poet called Hafiz that just capture it beautifully. The words you speak become the house you live in. If you tell yourself you're a piece of crap every day, you're going to feel like a piece of crap. If you tell yourself you're not good enough, you're going to feel the emotions that go with not good enough. And it's really interesting. Language is sort of a vehicle, or can be a vehicle for emotion. That's the reality of it. But feelings are a little bit different as well. Like a feeling by default is something that you feel. Like emotion is fear is the emotion. But the feelings is sort of, if you feel anxious in my belly, there's a tightness and stuff like that. So they are different.
Yeah.
Academics sort of talk about it in a different way as well, but they're all intrinsically related.
That's so interesting, yeah. And I can really believe and understand the idea that your thoughts create the house you live in. That really feels very profound.
Yeah.
And I remember reading before that your body can't tell the difference. What your brain tells it. I think it was something about, someone was talking about going for a run, and they're saying if you say to your body, oh my God, I'm going to die. It's so cold. I hate this. I'm crap at this. Then your body's like, okay, well, I don't want to go for a run. Not if we're going to die, you know?
Yeah.
And it believes you. It doesn't know the difference between your thoughts and the reality of what's going on.
Yeah.
And so if you tell yourself, I'm an amazing runner and this is going to be really enjoyable, your body's like, okay, let's do it. We can do it.
Let's do it, yeah.
Yeah.
So important. And that really taps into the placebo effect. Like the placebo effect was something that was in medical science that they couldn't figure out. Why are these pills that are sugar pills having such a profound impact? Because of the placebo effect. But like something biological changes. Like beliefs have such strong power, and beliefs are predominantly verbal. They're thoughts. That's the power of belief and thought. It's really, really
it's
huge.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You literally have the power to change your body in your brain.
In your brain, yeah. There's limits to that as well now. I think some people, I won't say any names, I think some people have sort of created a business out of that and brought it a little bit too far to say you can heal crazy things about yourself.
Yeah.
So there's all limits on these things, but you can definitely do this. Like, yeah.
I feel like I know who you're talking about. Zip. How can we stop seeking happiness, Brian, and just actually live it?
Stop seeking happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I think happiness can be dangerous, like happy, sad, love, hate, joy, or love, hate, pleasure, pain. Yeah. They all have polar opposites. So I would say don't go seeking happiness, seek joy. I think joy is sort of that middle route. So you can be joyful while bad things are happening. It's hard to be happy while bad things are happening, but you can have an inner peace, a stillness around you when that's going on as well. So I'd say chasing happiness, language, we play language games and you can get in the way, you know that way. I think pleasure, don't go chasing pleasure.
Yeah.
And happiness is related to that. But if you look at the brain science behind this, like there's a lovely thing found in neuroscience recently enough, and Dr. Anna Lemke does an incredible job explaining our brilliant book Dopamine Nation, but it's the pleasure pain balance. And if you experience pleasure, so let's say you have like baseline, you're feeling a certain amount of joy or happiness in your life.
Yeah.
That dopamine is a big component of that. But if you experience pleasure, you get a spike in dopamine, but when the pleasure's gone, it doesn't drop down to baseline. The pendulum keeps going and it goes under, and you feel awful as a result of that. That's why they come down after a great holiday or cocaine or whatever it is your upper is. The down is really, really low. So we've got to be careful of that. So I think it's about seeking inner peace, seeking joy. And I think you find it in the basics. People are looking for the magic wands, but it's like pets, kids, loved ones, nature, hikes, and finding the joy in that. But what's happening to our brains is our brains are being hijacked by alcohol, drugs, technology, food. Like the incredible food scientists are hijacking our brains with fat, salts and sugars and all. And food is tasting so good and it's hijacking our reward system. And what happens as a result of that? We sort of lose touch with the natural rewards of life. So if you're constantly chasing highs, you're going to be finding it difficult to really experience the pleasure and the goodness in the smaller, the simpler things, you know?
Yeah.
So focus on the simple things will be my message there.
Wise words. I think we have to leave it there, Brian Pennie. I was going to ask another question, but that is such a perfect ending. Thank you so much for joining me today.
An absolute pleasure, Dominique. I really love the chat.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Wellness Project with the always incredible Brian Pennie. This is the part where I ask you to please like and subscribe. It really does help us reach new listeners, and I know so many people could benefit from a conversation like that one. Remember also to keep an eye on image.ie for lots more information and insights and expert advice on all things wellness. I will chat to you next week, and until then, please do mind yourself. The Wellness Project is sponsored by Activia and Irish Life Health.